All right, bitches, strap in. I'm about to take you on a ride. Just kidding. I don't have that deep of a southern accent. I have been sewing for the past 18 months and I have a lot of thoughts because I feel like nobody really gets into the nitty-gritty of what it means to teach yourself how to sew, you know, primarily being like self-taught. So, today we're going to talk about why I started sewing, how I've been learning, challenges I've been having, and some of my key takeaways and like things I'm starting to like really form an opinion about when it comes to sewing. I started sewing because I really wanted to sew clothes for my husband. So he's on the shorter side and he has a really hard time finding men's clothing, like very specifically like a pair of chinos, a button up that really fit him properly. And I've noticed, and I honestly think it's just like a universal experience. And also in this book I read, The Creative Pragmatist, the author, who I forget, I'll pop it up on the screen. She talks about how like when you put on a pair of pants and they fit, your whole body relaxes, like your whole body. And I have experienced that since I started wearing clothes that I actually want to wear, not clothes for my body type. That's a different conversation. Okay, that's a different conversation. I really wanted to make him clothes that fit for him. And so that was like one of my main drivers. And my second driver is that I just really love sewing. I love operating a sewing machine. And I'm using really careful language there because I really think it's important that we understand that operating a sewing machine is very different from making a garment. They're two different things. Operating a sewing machine is a skill you use to make a garment, but it is a thing that I really, really love to do. And if you love operating a sewing machine, making clothes, I think is like a great way to get to use your sewing machine constantly. So, how I've been learning. Essentially, my grandma taught me to sew when I was like 10 or 12. I'm almost 30 now. So, I have sewed when I was a kid. And I had a sewing machine, but it was one of those like cheap ones that you get at Walmart that honestly it like broke down after a while. And honestly, I remember very vividly one night I was sewing really, really late. I used to make these cute little A-line skirts with like an elastic band, super easy to make. Great little project for a kid, by the way. And sewing with elastic, very difficult. And when you're a kid, and I broke the needle, and I remember that scared me so much. And I also really didn't know how to change the needle. And I just kind of stopped sewing after that. And then in college, or like right after I graduated college, I borrowed my little sister's sewing machine, which is again a little crappy one. I couldn't get it to work. So I returned it and I didn't think about it for a long time. And then last year for my birthday, because I was mentioning to my husband, I was like, I really, really, really want to start sewing because he had gotten a custom suit for our wedding. And he was like, wow, this is amazing. It fits me. And I just put it on and it fits. And I was like, okay, maybe I can make things. But I have ADHD and I like to like, have 1,000 different hobbies all around. Literally, but not 15 minutes ago, I was like, I'm so bored, nothing to do. Surrounded by hundreds of hobbies in my little office slash studio. Anyway, sidebar over. My husband for my birthday was like, why don't you take a sewing class? I took a sewing class, was like, oh yeah, baby. In Chicago, I took a sewing class. It's like, this is it. I like this. I like this a lot. It was only like 2-hour class and I was hooked. I love using a sewing machine. Love the sound it makes. I love just like how it feels when you press two pieces of like after you've sewn and then you press it and you see that beautiful seam. It's like, I don't know, it's just like the most fabulous, delicious thing ever. So I took that sewing class and then I was like, I've got to get my own sewing machine. So I got a little Singer heavy duty. Don't buy a Singer heavy duty. I will not explain further. And then from there, I really just started buying patterns online from Etsy and just sewing stuff. And to be honest, I haven't sewed that much in 18 months that I can actually wear. I have a pair of kind of fabulous pants that I can wear by this really awesome pattern designer. I forget her name, but I'll pop it up. And then I bought like a few like one-offs that I had patterns I had to dress, very aggressively, which I will get into that. okay, about patterns. This is one of the challenges that I have ran into. I kind of went through a phase of like buying a lot of kind of shitty patterns. And now the current phase I'm in, and the current phase I've been in, is I've found some really great pattern designers and I'm learning how to sew those patterns. So I'm doing a lot of repetition. I'm like, one second. Oh my goodness. Oh my gosh. Literally, it's such a nightmare back there. Okay. This is the last pair of trousers that I sewed. This is for my husband. We're in the middle of fitting. Okay, so this is one. This is two. I had to cut off the legs because I was making so many. This is three. You can see they have welt pockets on the back. This is four. This is five. I've made 5 pairs of pants in the past, like, I don't know, month. Let's see. I feel like I've made more than 4 shirts, but this is I tried to make a bowling shirt, came out awful. That's one. This is an iteration. This was a part of a fitting and also trying to get a nice finish on the collar stand. This is 3. This is 4. This is 5, okay? None of those are wearable. It's all practice. I'm in a phase where I'm just doing at this point. We're in a phase of doing. And I find that that's just, I've made the most improvement learning that way. What are some of the challenges that I've been facing, honey? There's a lot, okay? Number 1, technique. As you just saw, I have been sewing a lot. And, you know, you don't notice when you're looking at clothes, but okay, so I'm gonna take us a few steps back. In a factory, where they're manufacturing clothes, because my goal is to really make high quality clothes that look professional, that my husband can wear at work. When you think about buying clothes from a department store or online, there are people who are attaching a collar to a button-up shirt hundreds, if not thousands of times a day. You've got to understand that when you do something hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times, you're going to get really good at it. And for me, that connection really wasn't made until I started doing more challenging sewing projects. Yeah, I mean, a collar with a stand is really hard. And I've made less than 10. And it's like, in my brain, I know that I probably need to make dozens and dozens, and if not 100 more collars in order for it to be something wearable for my husband and for myself. I don't really wear collared shirts, but you know. So technique is the first thing, that challenge I've come into, is you think when you start sewing that you're just going to follow a pattern instruction and everything's going to be fun. And it's like, no, there's real technique and there's real practice that comes with being a seamstress, which is essentially, you know, making clothes. Number 2, tools and equipment. Oh boy. I'm just going to say it. People tend to say on YouTube and online that you don't need a super expensive sewing machine, which I would agree. I say as my Juki comes into view. I think that is kind of a lie. I think I have a Brother overlocker. It's not good, and it does affect the quality of my clothes when I use it. My Singer Heavy Duty, which I alluded to before, has been a problem point in sewing, which is why I got a better, more industrial machine, because I knew I wanted to sew a lot. If you want to hear what I really like, a thorough, in-depth review of the Singer Heavy Duty series, like, please let me know, because I have so many thoughts. I also have a lot of thoughts on like how and when and like what kind of sewing machine that you should buy based off of like what kind of clothes you're gonna make, because I am very prone to making expensive mistakes. Like I said, I have ADHD, the queen of buying things I don't need. Yeah, and there's like other equipment. Like I have this this Stripology XL ruler that I used to make a quilt earlier this year. It was like $90, and I think sometimes people look at this and they're like, that's just consumerism. Like, first of all, this is made by like a quilter. She like designed this very specifically for quilting. But I think some people would look at this price and just think that's ridiculous, but then you use it and you're like, this is one of the most useful tools that creates that finish that I need, okay? But I am very prone, like I said, to making expensive mistakes, and I think one of the most expensive things you can do is buying cheap version of things when you could have just bought the slightly more expensive thing. Then you wouldn't have had to buy it twice. And that's just that on that. Third thing, patterns. Okay, there's a lot of talk right now about AI patterns on Etsy. Y'all, there have been shitty patterns on Etsy for years now. AI is just a really great tool for scammers. It's just a really great way to make the problem worse. I learned very early on, you'll see a really cute dress and you'll be like, oh my gosh, like I want to get that. And then the pattern has very little instruction. Isn't great, honestly. And like from a fitting perspective, it's just like, what kind of proportions was this person thinking about when they made this pattern? Doesn't seem like they were thinking of many of like real women when they made the pattern. That being said, I've found some reputable pattern designers who really know what they're doing, who always provide a video, a really good written instruction. On the other side of that, I do think having important video instruction is good. I'm finding that patterns are just like really great guidance. They're not necessarily like, we're not working in a factory. It doesn't have to be exactly like the pattern. You know, we're not churning out hundreds and thousands of shirts. I think, and especially because I just showed you, I have like 12 mocks of shirts and pants. What's really good to know is what particular pattern pieces go with techniques. So like there's several different ways to pattern a zipper fly. Do you know all the ways in which you can use those patterns for zipper flies to do the correct technique? I know that doesn't really make sense. And maybe I'll go more into detail about that in another video. So let me know if you're still watching, if you think you would like to learn more about like that idea of repetition and that idea of like multiple ways to do something and all of that. I know I haven't taken my ADHD medication, so I'm very like, so that's my thoughts on patterns. Take your time trying to find them. If the pattern is $2, it's probably not good. I'm sorry. Although if you're really good at pattern fitting, which I actually find bust adjustments to be one of the easiest adjustments to make. I don't know why, because they seem so difficult. Sometimes you can always make it work if you're really versed in fit adjustment. But if you're a beginner sewist, like, how would you know about fit adjustment? You need a pattern that really, really works. Fitting. As you can see, all the shirts and pants that I showed you, fitting's really hard. And fitting's a major part of making clothes. It's not... Most people cannot just pick up a pattern and sew it up and it work. Here's the truth. I watched a video by Mina Lee a few months ago, I don't know, years, I don't know. I forget when it was released, but she was talking about why don't clothes fit anymore? Newsflash, clothes never fit. Clothes have never fit. The idea of mass producing clothes in and of itself, ooh, I could go in and into this I could talk about this forever. But the point is that there's always a fit model. Always a fit model. You have to remember, clothes that you get in the store come from patterns. Patterns come from fit models. It's just how it works. So a pattern isn't necessarily going to fit you just because you sewed it yourself. And I first heard that from Casey from Pattern Scout, but I didn't believe it until I started sewing really good patterns. Because you think, oh, this is a shitty pattern. Let me get a better pattern. But then you get a good pattern and it still doesn't fit. Because guess what? Like Cornelius Quiring, I cannot pronounce his name. He says, bodies are lumpy. They're lumpy and they're humpy and they're soft and they're squishy. And everyone's body is different. But my point is that fitting is a science. I got this book for free. It was like in front of somebody's house. They were like moving out. And it has a bunch of fit adjustments that you can make in it. And I do use this book pretty heavily. But even then, this book doesn't have everything, because fitting, I think it really comes from like practice and like really seeing what small adjustments could do to a body. And really also working with the person that you're making the clothes for, yourself, or in my case, I am doing a lot of fitting for my husband, really understanding his body. And also, sorry, you wouldn't like that joke. Anyway, really understanding the body that you're sewing for, and like really, really learning about it, learning how the curves of the pattern interact with the curves of your body. It's a science and it's geometry. Who said we were going to be doing math? We're sewing. It's ridiculous. I know. And the final challenge that I have gotten to is finding fabric. And I have a hot take. Joann's was never good. Joann's was never good. Joann's was never good. And I think Joann's closing. I think for people in rural areas, I do feel really bad. I live in Detroit metro area, so there's like kind of a surprising number of like local retailers that I had no idea about. They're like family-owned businesses. So I'm like, this is zillennial brain rotting on fire. Did you know that there are like local businesses? That's how I felt about getting a library card during the summer. I was like, did you know you can read books for free? No, I think Joann's closing for some people can be positive because it makes you go to your local retailers. I would have never known if Joann's hadn't closed that there's a company in the Detroit metro area, I'm not going to say the name, do your own research, that sells apparel fabric for $4.99 a yard. I don't necessarily use it to make clothes, but it's been invaluable with all of these mock-ups that I've been making. Because I go in, get 4 or 5 yards of some twill, okay, some twill for $4.99 a yard. That's crazy. I would have never known that. And then I also found a really lovely dress shop. Not dress shop, it's like kind of like a dressmaker fabric. They have like some, they have like a lot of silks and applique fabric. And since Joann's closed, they've really expanded the amount of things that they carry. Really lovely linens at what I think is a reasonable price compared to what Joann's was doing for those disgusting linen blends. Sorry. Fuck rayon. Anyway, would have never found those places if Joann's hadn't closed. But I do think finding fabric is going to get more difficult in the United States because of the tariffs. And I've been talking to people who have been in the fabric industry for decades. And they're like, yeah, there's no fabric made in the United States. There aren't any plans to bring manufacturing of fabric back to the United States. It's going to be rough. But what I'm learning is shopping local is a good thing. And there's also some really amazing, I say shopping local is amazing, and then I say there's a lot of amazing online retailers too, but there's also a lot of amazing online haberdasheries. If I'm not saying that right, that's gonna be so embarrassing. I'm not even gonna look it up. All of that being said, okay, what are my key takeaways from my first year and a half of sewing? Well, I'm coming at you with them. The first thing is that sewing clothes is not nearly as easy as people on YouTube make it look. There's just one young woman, I think she's my age. She sews like costumes for people. She just recently shared that she used to be a stripper, and her boyfriend gave her a sewing machine, and she was making, I assume she was making her costumes and stuff. So she's been sewing for a while. But she makes it look so easy. And I'm telling you, sewing with stretch fabric is not that freaking easy. She's just really good at what she does. And possibly out of necessity, she has been sewing for a long time. There's other people too who, they come on the scene and they're like sewing these really amazing things. And they're like, see, you should learn to sew, which I totally agree with. But then you kind of dig a little further and it's like they've been exposed to a sewing machine for like probably over a decade now. Sewing takes a lot of time. And though there are some projects and some clothes that you can sew and it's quite simple, like I think sewing a shirt like this, if you have like a cover stitch and a serger, probably pretty easy. Not a lot of fitting. It's pretty easy, nice material to work with. But even then, the finish and the technique is everything. And if you don't have that down, you might run into problems where you're like, oh my God, this is supposed to be easy, but it's not. And I'm telling you that it's okay if it's not easy. You just need to do it again and again and again and again and again. Number 2, making garments is a craft, not a skill. And this has been one of the most like game-changing kind of takeaways for me, honestly. I read this book, the War of Art. Forget the name of the author, but he talks about how as an artist, you really have to master your craft and leave the why to the gods. And that's really been my North Star the past couple of months, because sewing is a culmination of like 5 to 7 distinct skills, I think. And each one of those skills takes time and energy to perfect and to learn and to really be able to apply in a sequence of events to make a garment. And that may seem like, oh my God, it's not that deep. You're just making a pair of pants. But I'm an artist and I want to make something that's good. And I want to make something that is damn near perfect. I want to move towards perfection, and it's not a bad thing. It actually, after years and years of not really having a craft and not really engaging with making art, this realization of, oh, this is a craft that I can exercise with my hands has been game-changing. I hate when people say that, because it's like, it's not a game, but it has been paradigm shifting. Possibly that is the better phrase. My last takeaway: don't buy a Singer Heavy Duty. Just don't do it. You don't need it. There are better machines. There are better machines. Fucking trust me.
Say bye, Tony. Say bye.